I want you to close your eyes and picture it. The year is 1972. You're on a street corner in Harlem. It's gritty, it's cold, the economy is just in the tank.
Right.
But then this vision comes rolling down the street, a customized Cadillac Eldorado, headlights like diamonds, a guy steps out in a maxi coat that probably costs more than a car.
We are talking, of course, about Superfly.
The ultimate symbol of 1970s cool.
Oh, absolutely. It's the image that launched 1,000 imitations.
Exactly. And even if you haven't seen the movie, you know the vibe. Young blood creased, the Coke spoon necklace, that swagger. It looks like a film about a man who's beaten the system, a man totally in control.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that absolutely blew my mind when I started digging into the sources for this deep dive. That sense of control on screen, it was a complete and total illusion.
Oh, 100%. The image is slick, it's polished, it's confident. But if you peel back the layers of the actual production, Superfly was not a calculated Hollywood movie. It was a disaster waiting to happen.
It really was.
A desperate gamble funded by dentists and personal credit cards. I mean, it was teetering on the edge of collapse every single day.
It reads less like a film production and more like, I don't know, an anxiety dream.
That's a great way to put it. They were making a movie about high-stakes hustling, but the real hustle was just trying to keep the cameras rolling.
So that is our mission for this deep dive. We're looking at how a 45-page script, a star who was rejected for being too light-skinned, and a crew of guerrilla filmmakers accidentally created a classic.
And in doing so, they defined a genre, and this is the tragic part we'll get into. They basically destroyed the lead actor's career.
We've got a massive stack of sources here. Production histories, biographies, all of it. So let's start at the beginning. The blueprint. Or really the lack of one. The script.
Right. The 45-page problem.
Now, I'm no screenwriter, but I know the basic rule is 1 page of script equals about 1 minute of screen time. And a movie is usually, what, 90 to 120 pages?
Precisely. So when you have a script that is only 45 pages long, you don't really have a feature film. You barely have a TV episode.
And this wasn't written by some Hollywood veteran, right? This was Philip Fenty.
An advertising executive. From Cleveland, Ohio.
An ad man.
Yeah, an ad man. He'd read this article in New York Magazine, The Man with the Golden Nose, about a real drug dealer. And he thought, I can combine that grit with the, slick style of a TV commercial.
Cool concept, but you can't film a concept. You need scenes, you need dialogue, and 45 pages just won't cut it.
So the director, Gordon Parks Jr., is looking at this pamphlet, basically.
He's got a huge problem. He needs to deliver a feature-length film, but he runs out of story about halfway through.
And this is where the famous style of the movie comes from.
This is where necessity becomes the mother of invention. You know, all those iconic scenes, the long, moody shots of Priest just driving his car through Harlem or just walking down the street.
The parts everyone points to as, like, artistic genius, the hangout vibe of the film.
That wasn't an artistic choice at first. It was padding.
No way. Gordon Parks Jr. literally had to fill time. He just let the camera roll on the driving scenes. He added long, quiet shots of walking just to stretch the runtime to 91 minutes.
That is hilarious. So the whole moody, atmospheric 70s style was just the director stalling for time.
It basically changed the genre by accident. If they'd had a full script, it might have been a fast-paced action movie. Instead, because they had nothing else for the actors to do, it became this slow-burn character study. It forced you to just live in that world.
And Fenty, the writer, he knew he was an outsider. He was an ad guy from Ohio trying to write about the Harlem underworld.
He had a credibility problem. So he goes to his childhood friend, a guy named Nate Adams.
And Adams' reaction is just priceless.
He just laughs in his face. He basically tells him, and I'm paraphrasing here, black folks ain't doing no movies.
It just wasn't a thing.
It seemed impossible.
Yeah.
But Adams gets on board, and thank God he did, because he brings the authenticity, the fashion. But first, we have to talk about the money. Because if the script was thin, the wallet was even thinner.
This is the part that really got me. Superfly is known as one of the first films financed almost entirely by the African-American community.
Right. The producer, Sig Shore, went to Harlem and just started pitching local business owners. But he wasn't pitching to moguls or anything. He was pitching to regular professionals. And the people who finally stepped up were dentists.
Dentists?
2 black dentists from Harlem, Connie Jenkins and Ed Allen. They were the primary investors. Can you imagine that pitch meeting? Invest your life savings in this movie about a coke dealer with a half-finished script.
It's insanity. But they did it. And even with their money, it wasn't enough. I mean, the producers were using their own personal credit cards.
5 of them, total, just to keep
Yeah.
the shoot floating. They were building a movie on high-interest debt. If this thing flops, they're not just career ruined, they're like bankruptcy ruined.
And then, of course, they hit a wall. They run out of money completely. Credit cards are maxed. Dentists are tapped out.
And Gordon Parks Jr. has to make the phone call that no son ever wants to make.
To his dad.
To his dad, Gordon Parks Sr., the legendary director who had just made Shaft.
Which was the biggest movie at the time.
Shaft was the studio blockbuster, the Safe's black movie, backed by MGM. And here's the son with his gritty indie movie calling his famous successful dad for a bailout.
And he says yes.
He does. But think about the irony. The success of Shaft, the rival film, literally paid for Superfly to survive.
And that connection gets even more awkward when you look at the star of Superfly, Ron O'Neal. Because there's some real bad blood there with Shaft, right?
Bad blood is putting it mildly. It was a deep personal insult. Before Superfly, Ron O'Neal had auditioned for the lead in Shaft. He wanted to be John Shaft.
And he was rejected by
Gordon Parks Sr.
Dad.
The dad. And the reason he gave wasn't about acting ability. He told O'Neal he was too light-skinned to play the part.
Oof, that has to sting. To be told you weren't black enough.
Exactly. So fast forward, O'Neal is now starring in this rival movie, directed by the son of the man who rejected him.
Yeah.
And then the production runs out of money and has to be saved by the very man who rejected him.
It's a total paradox. His performance is being subsidized by the person who didn't want him in the first place. He must have had a massive chip on his shoulder.
Absolutely. And speaking of Ron O'Neal, let's talk about who this guy really was. Because when you watch the movie, you think, okay, this guy knows the streets.
You assume they just found some guy on the corner who lived that life.
Total opposite. Ron O'Neal was a classically trained stage actor. He came from the Karamu House in Cleveland, the oldest African-American theater in the country. He was doing Shakespeare. He was doing A Raisin in the Sun.
He was a high art guy.
He had just won an Obie Award, a huge theater award, for a serious play. He was an intellectual, a serious artist. And that conflict between the artist he was and the character he played, it's the central tragedy of his life.
But on set, he had to navigate a production that was literally breaking the law.
The guerrilla filmmaking aspect is my favorite part. No permits, no union crews. They were dodging the Teamsters and the police constantly.
And they lit the night scenes how?
They couldn't afford generators.
Yeah.
So they rigged wires to tap into the New York City streetlights.
They were stealing electricity from the city.
Stealing power from the grid. But think about how dangerous that is. You've got live wires hooked up to high-voltage city infrastructure. A cop looks too closely at a lamppost, you're shut down. It rains, someone gets electrocuted.
You can feel that frantic energy in the film, like they're rushing. But there was a silver lining to all that rule breaking, because they couldn't afford the white-dominated unions.
They hired a non-union crew, and that meant they could hire who they wanted. They worked with the Third World Cinema Corporation, which was all about getting minorities into the film industry. So they had one of the largest non-white technical crews of the era.
All out of financial necessity.
Yep. And speaking of necessity blurring into reality, the car, the hog, that custom caddy.
Not a prop from a studio, a lot.
Nope. That car belonged to a man named Casey, and Casey was a real-life, well-known Harlem pimp.
So they just asked to borrow his car?
They couldn't afford to build one, so they found the real guy. But Casey had a condition. He wanted to be in the movie.
And he is.
He is. In the nightclub scene, there's a cameo. You see the real pimp standing there. The line between actor and reality just vanishes. Ron O'Neal is playing a hustler, wearing clothes inspired by hustlers, driving a real hustler's car, standing next to the real hustler.
It's basically a documentary at that point.
In disguise, yeah.
Yeah.
And the wardrobe that
Yeah.
was made Adams. He didn't invent those looks. He just documented what he saw on the streets of Harlem and put it on Ron O'Neal.
There's one more bizarre coincidence with the cast, the actor Carl Lee, who plays Eddie.
This is stunning. So Carl Lee plays Priest's partner, Eddie. But 8 years earlier, in a film called The Cool World, Carl Lee starred as a character named Priest.
So the guy playing the sidekick to Priest used to be Priest in another Harlem movie. That's cosmic.
This feels almost destined, right?
So we have the look, the crew, the car. But Superfly is nothing without the sound. Curtis Mayfield.
The soundtrack is arguably the most important character in the film. And it's the movie's conscience. That was completely intentional. When Curtis Mayfield read the script, he didn't like it.
He didn't like the script.
He felt it glorified the dealer. He saw the danger in making Priest a hero. But instead of walking away, he decided to write the music as a counter-narrative. The lyrics aren't celebrating the life, they're warning you about it.
He's critiquing the movie while scoring it.
It's like a Trojan horse. You're bobbing your head to the groove, but the lyrics are telling you, don't do this. Take Freddy's Dead. It's a huge hit. He wrote it in 5 minutes because he felt bad for Fat Freddy, the stooge who gets killed. The hit song is about the guy who loses, not the guy who wins.
And the soundtrack was massive.
It outgrossed the movie, which is so rare. The album made more money than the film.
But there was some drama behind the scenes there, too, with his arranger, Johnny Pate.
A lot of drama. Pate was a jazz legend who did the arrangements. He claimed he wrote some of the melodies and demanded a co-writing credit. Mayfield refused. It turned into a nasty public feud, a lawsuit.
And the credits on the album. That was the final dagger.
It's this incredibly petty, legalistic insult. It says the music was orchestrated from the original dictations of Curtis Mayfield.
Dictation.
A specific legal word to erase Pate's creative contribution. It implies Mayfield just hummed it and Pate wrote it down like a secretary. It destroyed their friendship.
Wow. And the conflict just exploded when the movie came out. We said Mayfield thought it glorified drug dealing. Turns out, so did Ron O'Neal.
This is the great irony. The star of the movie hated the most famous sequence in it. That montage with the still photos of cocaine being sold, set to music.
He called it a commercial for drug dealing.
He was disgusted. He felt it turned the destruction of his community into a party.
And he wasn't the only one. The public backlash was intense.
It was brutal. The NAACP, CORE, and a group called BANG, Blacks Against Narcotics and Genocide. They were picketing theaters, holding signs that said, "Super Genocide."
Super genocide. That is heavy.
They saw it as white corporations selling poison to black audiences. And this is where a very famous word was born, Blaxploitation.
Right, which we now use to describe the whole genre. It's almost affectionate now.
But it was coined specifically to attack Superfly. Junius Griffin of the NAACP invented it. It wasn't a cool genre tag. It was an insult, an accusation.
So the movie is a hit. It knocks The Godfather out of the #1 spot. Ron O'Neal is a superstar, but you said this destroyed him.
It's the tragic aftermath. The role of Youngblood Priest was a trap. Ron O'Neal was an Obie-winning Shakespearean actor. But after this, Hollywood would not see him as anything else. He was typecast forever as the pimp, the dealer.
He couldn't get those serious roles?
No. People thought he was a hustler. He got trapped in the fur coat. He tried to break out. He directed a sequel, Superfly TNT.
I have never even heard of that.
Most people haven't. Because O'Neal tried to fix the message. He moved the character to Africa, made him a hero fighting for a greater good.
And the audience?
Rejected it.
Yeah.
They didn't want hero priest. They wanted hustler priest. The sequel flopped, and his career never recovered. He spent the next 30 years in supporting roles like playing a Cuban officer in Red Dawn.
That's heartbreaking. A guy wants to be Othello, and the world only wants him to be a pusher.
It really is.
So let's bring this all together. What's the big takeaway here?
I think Superfly is this fascinating case study in accidental success and the cost of that success. You have a script that barely existed, funded by dentists and credit cards, a production that had to break the law just to exist.
And it became a cultural war.
Exactly. A battleground. On one side, you have the style, the music, the breakthrough for black crews. On the other, you have the super genocide accusations and the destruction of a brilliant actor's potential.
It's just wild to think that the movie about beating the man ended up being a trap for the man who starred in it.
That's the ultimate takeaway for me. Ron O'Neal played the ultimate symbol of beating the system. But in the end, the Hollywood system beat him. It took his image, sold it for millions, and then refused to let him be anything else.
A heavy price for immortality. It makes you watch that final scene differently, knowing what was waiting for him on the other side of the credits.
Absolutely. It changes everything.
Well, that's all the time we have for this deep dive. It's been a wild ride through Harlem and Hollywood. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
And here's a final thought to chew on. We talked about how Curtis Mayfield wrote the soundtrack to be the conscience of the film, debating the movie's own images. It makes you wonder, how many other movies are out there where the soundtrack is secretly fighting with the director? Next time you're watching a blockbuster, listen a little closer. The music might be telling you a completely different story. Catch you next time.